Welcome back, everybody, to part 3 of our talk today about money, the root of all evil, or is it really? And I am sitting here today with Roger Wetzel and with Karen McKY, our guest, talking about McKY and the ability that we have to change our beliefs about money. We started in part 1 talking about what McKY is, and in part 2 we really kind of dove into what are some of the beliefs that we hold around money. And now let's talk about how we can change some of these beliefs around money. What is available to us to help us get through this?
Okay. Well, one of our very first steps is awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And that might sound simple, but it's complex. So we need to first develop an awareness of what programs and messages we're actually operating from. And the best way to do this might be to take a little tape recorder, or you could use your cell phone and use the little recording device built into your cell phone these days, and just have a monologue about any subject you want, and just start talking. And what are your thoughts? What are your ideas about, let's say, relationships? And you start letting yourself go and talking about those relationships. And then turn it off and play it back. And what you want to listen for are limiting beliefs. Things like, I'm just not attractive enough to find a good mate, or other people won't find me desirable, or whatever, or my parents were together and they always fought, so if I'm in a relationship, we're going to fight all the time too. So these steps of awareness are the first critical pieces that we have to tie into. We've got to be able to identify what's going on in our life. And if you can't tie into the beliefs yet, then take a look at the world around you. What is happening in your current life? Because that is the outward manifestation of your belief structures. So if you don't like what you have, then start identifying what it is that you do want. And this question oftentimes stumps people right there, because very seldom does anybody ask us, what do you really want? From a heart-centered space.
When I even ask myself that sometimes, it's hard to connect with what is it that I want. I mean, sure, there's big things that people want, love, or a roof over their head, enough, whatever it is. But sometimes it's hard for people to get to that.
Exactly.
To get to that point. So I think awareness, is that a step that everybody should take before they even try to change a belief? Let's hear what really is going on with our beliefs.
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. It is a very important step. We have to be aware of what we want, because we're going to create a belief statement, which is different than an affirmation. It has 5 key criteria that it must meet for us to be able to use the McKY balance process with it. So we want to make sure that it's going to be meeting these five key criteria, so that we can have it be effective for us. And one of those criteria is that it must be present tense, because the subconscious is always in the present tense. So we can't use the futuristic or the past. It has to be, present. So what we have to do then is carefully consider what we really want. And I suggest to people, write this statement down on a piece of paper, because oftentimes what we think we're saying is not what actually ends up on the paper. And we write it down and we go, oh, well, that's not what I mean at all.
Yeah.
You have to really rethink it and say, okay, so what is it that I really want? I think I know what I want, but I'm not sure that I do. We have to know where we're going. If we're going to go take a trip to the beach, we have to know that we're going to the beach, because we're going to pack different things into the car if we're going to the beach than if we're going skiing in the mountains. It's totally different climate, totally different clothing, totally different activities. We have to know what we want. So that gets down to our life. We have to know what it is we want in our life. So write it down, and then we have to look at the energy. So I like to ask people to write down their limiting belief. Let's say, let me grab some of these that we had. Let's say it was a belief about lack and limitation. I'll never earn a good enough or large enough income. Okay, because we're talking about money. So we might say, well, a possible different belief that is what we want is, I am open and ready to receive a large income. That might be one of the first steps. Now we could take this, I'll never earn a good enough or large enough income. That could be more like a stone, like a beautiful diamond.
Mm-hmm.
And that one stone has all these edges on it that are really rough, and you can't even, a good gem cutter can see the beautiful finished product within the rough stone itself. So that beautiful gem cutter is going to start knocking cuts into that rough stone, and when he or she is finished, they're going to have this beautiful diamond that glistens and refracts light, and it's going to be set into a ring or a pendant or something like that. So I like to think of us as we're gem cutters, and we're going to cut facets into this rough stone. The rough stone is what we're looking at, is I'll never earn a good income or have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's the diamond in the rough. But then we knock a facet into it, and we say, okay, I am open and ready to receive large amounts of money. Now, the next thing might be, well, yeah, but if I have that much money, I don't know how to manage it. Okay, let's cut another facet. I'm intelligent and wise, and find people who can support me managing money. So we balance for that one. I attract people that help me with my financial plans. Might be another cut that we make into that stone. And so before you know it, we've got this beautiful, incredible new belief structure that supports our overall goal of having money in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have to probably balance for more than one statement. Most of the time,
it seems like there would be lots of layers that you would go through.
Yeah, people can call them layers, or I call them facets. But you could look at it as layers too, definitely. Yeah. And I know a lot of people say, well, how many balances am I going to have to do? I have no way of knowing,
As many as it takes.
Depending on the subject matter, it might be we do one belief change and your whole world shifts magically. And for some other people, we work on a project for weeks on end. There's a wonderful gentleman that is working on developing a new business. And so we've been working on him being able to step out of his current employment and step into his new business. He'll be an entrepreneur. He's not changing the service that he's providing. He'll be providing the same services, but he's been an employee, and now he wants to move to being self-employed. And he's been self-employed doing this service before. So he's coming at this whole thing from all of his fears about the failure, his perceived failure that he had in the past. And I'm saying, look at that perceived failure as actually training wheels for your new venture. You're not going to have to make the same pitfalls and everything that you had before, because you're smarter now. So, but he's got all these beliefs, about this. So we've been working on him making this major change for probably over a year now. And we've had to address fears, we've had to address rejection, we've had to address relationships, we've had to address all kinds of things about him changing his employment format. And it included beliefs about his parents and his family, about what will they say to him, or what will they think about him taking this wild and crazy step again. So again, multifaceted or multi-layered situation, but that all revolves around his money and how he earns money.
One of the things that you said earlier, I believe it was in part 2 of this conversation, and you just alluded to it, is that this is not something, what we're talking about here isn't something that's going to happen instantaneously. And we live in a world that, it's like, oh, I want to have a Rolls Royce. So tomorrow, if I have all these positive thoughts today and tonight, and in the morning tomorrow, I'll have a Rolls Royce. Like you just said, you work with this guy for a year, right?
Right.
And so I think that's, for me, I think that it's one of the things that in this kind of work that it would seem that you have to overcome that idea of I want it now. And so I'm going to come to you and I'm going to work with you for like a week, and then I'm going to have everything, my life's going to be perfect. It's not like that, is it?
No, we've become so conditioned to immediate gratification. And, I talk to people, I say, Rome wasn't built in a day. You've got, your life wasn't built overnight. You've spent however many years becoming who you are right now.
Yeah.
And that's not bad. We've got lots of wonderful, incredible supportive beliefs within our system too. We're only looking at changing the programs or the belief structures that are not supporting us. And yeah, there's two ways of understanding this. Well, there's probably more than two, but let's go with two. We can have people who will change one belief or two beliefs or maybe 4 or 5 in a 1 hour session, and their whole life shifts. I've seen it happen time and time again. We have a whole process that we use for helping people with allergies. And I've seen people go from anaphylactic shock conditions if they eat shellfish to working with the subconscious in one session, and they go out and eat shellfish or sushi or whatever it is that would trigger them, and they don't have the problem anymore.
Wow.
I mean, it's
That's
that incredible.
huge.
It is huge. But now, does that happen for everybody? No, not necessarily. I've been working on a milk allergy, or perceived milk allergy, let's put it that way, for the past 6 years, because I've had challenges with my physical system when I eat milk or milk related products, specifically, ice cream or things that are really rich in milk, heavy cream based things. I get stuffy nose and, runny nose and that kind of stuff. And it doesn't put me into an anaphylactic shock condition, but it's irritating and it's not really all that pleasant. So I've been working on that for 6 years. So why is it that one person can have this anaphylactic shock condition go to a non-reactive state at all in 1 hour, and I've been working on it for 6? Well, I will tell you that I've come to understand that I'm being given the information in pieces, that it's a much more complex thing for me than it was for this other man that had the anaphylactic shock with shellfish. So then that takes us back to other things. We are so multi-layered, and we are such complex beings. We are truly complex beings that we might need to have several different sessions. And like this man I was telling you about that I'm helping him with his business piece, he's confronting all kinds of things in our sessions over the past year. And he's like, I get that Rome wasn't built in a day. I understand that. And I want to work on the things that are keeping me back from my desired future. So that's what we do. Each month we meet and we'll talk about whatever it was that showed up in his life in the past month that was holding him back. And we address those issues. And he knows that he's so close. Like he wrote to me the other day and he said, on such and such a date, I'm giving my termination, and on 2 months later, I'm out of there. I'm leaving. And he says, I'm going to give him 2 months to transition without me. But we've also talked about the possibility that they might not want him. And then he gives them the word that he's leaving and they boot him out. And he's like, I can handle that. I'm ready for it. So does it happen quickly? Absolutely. I've seen it. Does it happen that way all the time? No, it doesn't. We have to be understanding of ourselves that we are complex beings. We are unique. And sometimes things take a little time. And the other good thing about Psyche that I love is that we have oftentimes a domino effect. So if we knock down one belief and we have all these other things that are tied to it, those things topple over when we hit the kingpin.
That's cool.
So sometimes that happens too, and there's no way to know if we've got the kingpin or not.
Right.
I suppose if a lot of things start toppling, then ooh, yeah. we had the core here.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a mystery. Our lives are a mystery. And I think that's part of what makes our lives so fascinating, is that we don't have to have all the answers. And, what fun would it be if we just had everything immediately? There'd be nothing left to shoot for. So
I would guess that's why we come here to the physical world, because it would be challenging, because I would suspect on some other plane we don't have to wait for anything.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Yeah. Now, I think earlier in one of the parts we started to talk about hardware and software. Do you want to jump into that now and tell us about what that means in terms of Psyche and our beliefs?
Sure. We can talk about that.
And is that about how we start to change the beliefs? Because that's what this part was about, was really how do we get in there and start changing these?
Well, Yeah, that's more about process. And, I can't really share how to go through a Psyche process in our conversation here.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
much more complex than that. And when we do a workshop, which is where we transfer the knowledge about the Psyche processes, we do those in highly experiential workshops. And so people come to a class, and there's usually 10 to 15, 20 or more people in a workshop. And so you're going to be interacting with other people, and you're going to be practicing the processes that we teach you. So there's always a thorough demonstration of how to do the process, and then you engage in it yourself. And so you're working on things that matter to you in the class environment. It's not just about come and do things that don't matter about you personally. You're going to get to work on personal subject matter in the workshops.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really cool. But of course, I can't share all of that because it's very involved. But the understanding part of what's going on with the hardware system, our brain, is very important. And sometimes this is a bit of a challenge for people to get around because they think that their consciousness is their brain. And it's not. I mean, it's just not at all. Our brain is the hardware, and our consciousness is interacting with the hardware, but they are very different. So the hardware that we have is the brain.
Mm-hmm.
We've got the two different hemispheres that we have that process the information. And then we have another piece that's called the corpus callosum. And the corpus callosum is a dense bundle of nerve fibers that connect the two hemispheres together. And the job of the corpus callosum is to get the information back and forth between the two hemispheres of the brain so that we can be what we call living in a whole brain state. But a lot of us have challenges with that. In fact, we, if I can get the slide thing to come up, if you'll give me just a second, maybe
Yeah, go right ahead.
Talk for a minute while I pull this up.
I'm going to chase down this bee that keeps attacking me over here. I really want to ask it if it has a message for me or something, but not appropriate, I suppose, in the middle of an interview. But, it's a nice day in the Pacific Northwest, and I have my window open. The screens aren't on yet.
Yeah,
Therefore, B.
Yeah, and I'm working to get this thing to go. I think I've got it. Okay, let's see if we've got it here. Okay, do you see the screen?
Yeah, we see this quite nicely.
Okay, great. All right, so we've got these two different hemispheres, and I'll use my pointer, and of course they're not this color at all, but they're just here for the demonstration purposes. But what I love about our hemispheres is the jobs that they do. So let's just take a look really quick at how they process information. So the left hemisphere processes information through logic and reasoning, whereas the right hemisphere is more about processing creatively and tying into intuition. Now, some people would say this might be more of our spiritual capacity that is more right-brained effect. We also have the left hemisphere processing information as words, and the right hemisphere processes information as pictures. The left deals with parts and specifics, whereas the right hemisphere deals with the relationships things have to one another. It's more holistic in the way it handles information. The left is responsible for analyzing and breaking things apart, and the right hemisphere synthesizes and puts things back together again. The left deals with sequencing. The right deals with things on a much more simultaneous activity level. The left identifies with individuals, and the right identifies with groups. And the left is highly ordered and controlled, whereas the right is spontaneous and free. So when you look at those lists, you might see yourself in one of those capacities more than another. Maybe you're more left-brained or you're more right-brained. How does that work for you guys?
I'm middle-brained.
You're middle-brained.
I was thinking that same thing, that I'm right down the middle. Of course, I'm a Gemini. I have both halves playing.
Yeah, well, and that really, we want to be able to use these resources and capabilities all the time. We don't want to be left-brained or right-brained because, and here's a funny little joke, if I'm left-brained or right-brained, that means I'm a half-wit. And I don't want to be a half-wit. I want to be a whole-wit. I want to be witty, I guess. But the idea here is
your brain, you're witless.
Yeah, you're not using the brain. Well, then we've got this other piece here that's the corpus callosum, which we were talking about, and I don't have a good picture of that right now, but you can look it up on the internet and you can see, what this corpus callosum looks like. But the idea is really that we want to be able to use this hardware so that, and I'm thinking I'm back on.
Yes, you are. You're back on.
Okay. We want to be able to use this hardware in such a way that we are whole brain, because that allows us to access the resources of both hemispheres.
Yeah.
And when we can do that, then our hardware is working really well for us. So that's a little bit about the hardware. Sometimes our beliefs actually are stuck in one hemisphere or the other. And so we want to be able to open up that stuck hemisphere so it can communicate well with the other hemisphere. Now, remember the story I told you about how I was as a child, where
Yes.
I didn't play well with individuals and I didn't do well with groups?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be both hemispheres not being really very well activated in regards to people and relationships. So that's like neither one wanted to be present in that respect. So as time went on, I've been able to activate those hemispheres when it comes to relationships with people. And now I'm quite comfortable with people. But before, I was really shut down in both of those hemispheres when it came to relationships.
Well, I just got off thinking about this whole thing about with autism, children who are autistic and so forth. Is that a hemisphere in the brain that's misfiring? And can we trace that to beliefs somewhere too?
Well, we can activate the hemispheres so that they are functioning better. And that would be another slide I could show you if you want me to do that real quick. I'm going to see if I can get back to it. This would allow us to, let's see if we can get, no, hang on a minute, I got to go back to share screen.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's see if we can get this to go to the next image. I'm going to hold my breath.
Don't do that, you'll turn blue.
Okay, there we go. It works.
It's blue.
All right, so let me explain this, because this is fascinating information. Now, when PsyK got started 26 years ago, we had no scientific research at all. It was just all about knowing that it worked. People's lives changed because they were engaging with the processes. But in 2010, a wonderful scientist started working with us and using brain mapping. And we were able to start getting some information, and there still is so much to be done. I mean, we're just scratching, the surface of the skin really at this point in time, but there's so much to be done. So let me help you guys understand what's going on in these images.
Okay.
First of all, and it's going to take just a minute to explain this, but this is not the full spectrum of what a brain map can show. This is just something called an independent t-test, and an independent t-test allows us to see the data generated from the brain map with respect to a precondition and a post-condition. So this would be the red lines, and let me show you what we've got here. The red line, well, first of all, we got two different brain maps, and these are from two entirely different people. So this is important to understand, because I don't want you to get confused about that.
Okay.
Next, we have to understand that the red lines indicate the brain wave activity going on in each of these individuals before we did the PsyK balance process. So the red is before. The blue lines indicate the additional brainwave activity that resulted from doing the PsyK balance process. So
interesting.
then we add the red lines plus the blue lines, and that's going to create what we call the whole brain state, which results from doing the PsyK balance process. So just keeping that real simple, let's take a look. This is delta brainwave activity here, which is measured between 1 and 4 hertz.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have theta brainwave activity measured between 4 and 8 hertz. We have alpha brainwave activity between 8 and 12 hertz, and hertz is just a measurement of energy. Beta brainwave activity between 12 and 25 hertz. And then we have high beta down here, which is between 25 and 30 hertz. And then these three images are breakouts. We've got beta 1, beta 2, and beta 3. These are breakouts of this guy up here directly above on the right-hand image. This is the nose. Here's the left ear, the right ear. So if you could imagine all of these top 4 rows being all overlapped together, that would be like a bigger picture of all the brainwave activity going on. But these are like broken out, so you can see it. So delta is known more as the sleep state, but delta brainwave activity functions all the time. theta brainwave activity is more what we know of as the subconscious mind. And then alpha is what we call the quiet conscious mind. It's interacting with theta all the time. And then beta is more about our conscious brainwave activity, that the things that we're using for decision making, evaluating, those kinds of projects. So just look at the red lines here for a minute. You can see these red lines. Let's just look at delta for a moment. And we see most of this brainwave activity is taking place in the front of the brain. There's some red lines here back underneath that we see, towards the back. But really, we don't have a lot over here on the right hemisphere. And we really don't have any red lines over here on the left hemisphere. But when the balance took place, which is this is about 4 to 5 minutes apart. Okay, so red lines, and then we do the balance activity, and then, which takes maybe 3 to 5 minutes, and then we do another reading. We get this new activity that shows up. So this is engaging the left hemisphere and the back of the brain at the delta level. Now we see what's going on here in theta. We've got similar pattern here with the activity in theta, but the brainwave activity is different when it's the after the balance part. We see a big difference here. There's a lot of new activity front to back in alpha. And we see some new activity that resulted in the beta level. So there's change that's happening in the brain. Now take a look at this other person. And this would be an example of a left brain thinker. See how much of the activity is lit up in red?
Yeah.
It's predominantly in the left hemisphere.
And the left was the logic, the analytical side of the brain.
Right,
right,
sequencing and all that kind of stuff,
right,
dealing
okay.
with individuals, yeah. And so we see this is very strong in all levels, and even down here in high beta. But look at how the right hemisphere lights up as a result of having done the psyche balance. So when you're talking about could this help autistic people, absolutely, it helps all people. It helps us access our brainwave activity differently than how it's running. So it's very, very fascinating information, and science, is great because it helps us see so much more than what we've got, and it allows us to have validation about kind of this airy-fairy area that we're looking at with the psyche processes, because there isn't a lot of visual change that happens. Like, we don't go from being blue-eyed to brown-eyed or something like that. I mean, we're not going to see something strange like that happen.
No, yeah, and it's somebody's word that they're saying, oh yeah, this has changed in my life or something like that. It's subjective, where this is pretty much right on, being able to see it objectively in a scientific way.
Right.
That's amazing to me.
Yeah, it really helps people feel more confident that these processes actually make a difference. And I know for myself, I'm not a person that feels something pretty strongly in my physical body when a change is made with a balanced process. I go from not being bored to, okay, now I think I'm done because I'm bored. I don't have a huge change happen. Other people will feel their brain working differently, or they'll notice something shifting in their physical body. Maybe we can oftentimes see people's shoulders relax, or they take a big deep breath, or maybe their face softens. Maybe their brow is really furrowed and then that relaxes or something. So we can oftentimes see physical things, but like for myself, I don't really notice a lot. So for me, getting to have a brain map was really a powerful experience, because I got to see that even though I didn't feel something happening, it really was. It really was.
Great.
Yeah.
So which one of those brains was yours?
Neither one. I don't want to disclose that I'm a half-wit still. No.
Oh, okay. You're still working on the whole wit.
Yeah, I'm still working on the whole wit. Well, I'm much more whole wit now than I used to be. That's for darn sure.
That's cool.
Yeah.
To me, that's just amazing. When I first heard about Psych-K, God, it was probably 2003, 2004. None of that was being done yet, I'm sure. And I was impressed with at that point. So this to me is just amazing. This takes a lot of those people that are the naysayers or the skeptics and shows them sort of in vivid picture that there are changes happening.
Yeah, exactly. Well, so we were talking about the hardware. Let's talk about the software now. So the software is really our subconscious mind. And so this is where we talked, I think it was in the first section of this program, about our energy field, and that the subconscious is actually an energy field. It is not something physical that's located in our body somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And science is starting to come around to this understanding that the subconscious is not in the body, but it's taking them a while to get out of that old train of thought. So if
Would
we
it
could,
be like what they call in quantum physics the non-local mind, or
yes,
the non-local? So it's not in, you can't trace it somewhere to the body, it's in the energy
right,
field.
right. So if we can go with this kind of expansive idea that we have this energy field that's all around us, and you can, I mean, imagine it however big you want, but let's just say it's, you know, it's within my arm's reach.
Mm-hmm.
It's larger than that, obviously, but so here's my subconscious energy field around me. My energy field is interacting with the energy fields of all the other people. It's interacting with the energy field of consciousness in general. It's interacting with the energy field of the high self, or the over self, or whatever you want to call it, God, universal mind, whatever.
Yeah.
So there's this non-local effect that's available to us. We do not have to be doing anything in particular to be able to have this interaction take place. It's taking place all the time. So when somebody says, oh, I just had the intuition that I should do such and such, you know, they go, well, how did you know that? And you say, well, I don't know. I just have this idea or understanding that I need to go do something. And you go act on it. And sure enough, it was the best opportunity that, you know, showed up. So we're always picking up all this information from around us. So this is our software system. We have to understand that the software system that we have is available to be worked with at any point in time. And I wanted to bring into account Lynn McTaggart's book, The Field. I don't know if many of your readers have looked at that book yet or read it, but it's a really fabulous book. And then also Greg Braden's book, The Divine Matrix, because it will help you understand more about this energy field. And Greg is very involved in quantum physics, and so it's going to be very expansive, mind-blowing information. But you know, really start to take a look at what we're interacting with. We're interacting with incredible power that we're not using very wisely at all. So when we can work with this to change our beliefs, then we've got all sorts of cool stuff at our fingertips.
Yeah, The Divine Matrix was a really good book. I read Lynn's book a long time ago. We're actually interviewing Lynn next month.
Awesome. Good
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, it'll be awesome to have her on. After we've just had this conversation, we can delve into the field.
Oh, congratulations. That'll be a wonderful program.
Yeah.
Well, so a couple of examples were, have you ever lost your car keys and your friend says to you, have you looked under the couch? And you're thinking, you know, why would she even say that to me? You know, but sure enough, you go look under the couch and there they are.
Yeah, I've actually had that happen.
Okay, well, so she's tying into the energy field.
It's,
you know,
where I've been the one to say, oh, go look in your car, or go, you know, look. Yeah.
Exactly. So your subconscious is communicating with her subconscious. You're probably too stressed to be able to get the messages from your own subconscious, but your subconscious says, oh, well, Sally can pick up on this information and she'll reflect it, you know, to Janet. So your subconscious sends the information through this non-local experience to Sally. Sally is receptive to it. She says, hey, Janet, go check under the couch, and you go do it, and you go, oh, there they are. How did she know that?
She's psychic.
Well, and we all are.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. We all are psychic. And that's pretty neat. So there's another really neat book I wanted to share, which is, and I just happened to have an intuitive moment when I was visiting my daughter in San Diego. She'd taken me to this wonderful metaphysical bookshop that I have enjoyed, and I said, on my last visit, I said, I think we need to go to that bookstore again. And she goes, why? And I said, I don't know. There's just something there for me. I just know that we need to go. Do you mind taking me up there? And she says, no, let's go. So we jump in the car and we go. And we get up to the bookstore, and I can't figure out what it is. So I just start wandering around the bookstore, just saying, okay, I'm open, you know, let me know. And there's a guy unboxing a bunch of brand new books. And he doesn't throw them, but he stacks them off to the side, you know, as he's unpacking. And the top book is this book, and it's called, the author is Judith Pennington, and it's called Your Psychic Soul, Embracing Your Sixth Sense. And in this book, she's got all kinds of brain science research in there about how our psychic abilities are now being detailed by brain research.
Yeah.
So it's a great book. It's easy to read, and most people will, find it very interesting. So we're broadcasting our messages, like Roger had said earlier. We're receiving messages. We're broadcasting. It's like we're our own radio station, but we're sending and receiving. And so we've got to be careful about what we're broadcasting, because the beliefs that we send out into the universe are being held in that state of collective consciousness. So very important.
It's interesting, and because I've just been listening and observing, and I find it fascinating that what we know, we have to prove scientifically to make it true.
Isn't that amazing?
Even in this conversation.
Yep.
Right?
Well, we're operating.
Like the level of excitement of that science is finding this to be true is like, well, isn't that an interesting way to look at things? Because it's almost like we've invalidated, or it's not valid enough that we know that these things are the way that they are, because we've experienced them and they've had great results in our own lives, even if it's just the three of us, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's also that belief that that's not good enough.
Yeah, and I appreciate that comment so much. Thank you, Roger, because we oftentimes have to have science to create this proof. There's other people, and I would say that the large majority of the Psyche instructors could have cared less about this brain science being offered in the Psyche realm. We had the scientists come and share this information, and most of the other instructors could have cared less. They weren't moved by it. Now, I, on the other hand, because I grew up in a very science-based home, my mom was a chemist and my dad was a physicist, as well as an electrical engineer. And so I lived, breathed, and slept with science. And, it's like, that was just my life. So when this information was offered, I was thrilled. But the majority of the other instructors just said, well, this is interesting, but it doesn't change a thing about how I'm going to present Psyche. And it hasn't changed really a thing about how I present Psyche either, because my spiritual side of me knows that so much has already happened within me. And that inner knowing is more profound for me than the science. But I do enjoy the science piece. And one of the cool things about science is that it's starting to really bridge now with spirituality.
Yes.
And it's like it's finally catching up to what we've always known internally.
Well, I think it's just validating, right? To be able to see it. Yes, I have faith and I trust and I have all this, but there's always going to be somebody out there that says, can you prove it? And now you've got this ability to say, yes, I can. By the way, look at this. So
yeah, I think that having that information is very important.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, we have to be really. I just find it fascinating, just like thinking about it and just actually listening to you two, like get excited about it. Because I'm not a science guy, but like on the other hand, my brother is like a total scientist geek, right? So he would need this information. So it's good to have this information.
Yeah.
As to support this, but at the same time, it's both and, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking as you were sharing that, Roger, that it's really about feeding the left hemisphere, because the left hemisphere is all about logic and reasoning. So the science feeds the left hemisphere. And then our spiritual nature is fed by the experience of the change processes that we go through with the Psyche stuff. So it's that inner knowing piece, or the connection to the divine, that says, this is real. It's very real. So it's about those two hemispheres having that conversation where they lock in and they go, okay, both of us have it. Now we're whole brain.
Sure, yeah.
We're not half-wits anymore. We're whole wits now.
Whole wit.
Yeah, I'll probably never live that down now.
I think you should put that in put that in the Urban Dictionary.
Yeah, I'll have to do that. If you're a left brain thinker or a right brain thinker, you're a half-wit.
Right.
Yeah.
Gives a whole new meaning to half-wit, I think.
Yeah. So, we're back to the whole thing about our beliefs again. And I think it's important for us to really consider in regards to money, what we're thinking about, and how are we thinking about money, because it is a big part of our life, and most of us desire more than what we have, and it seems like money can be very elusive when it doesn't have to be that way at all. And one of the most important things I've learned about money over the last 6 years is that the more I chase after it, the more elusive it becomes. But when I can sit back and be in a state of gratitude, and I balance for knowing that I always have more than enough money to meet my needs, guess what? I do.
Yeah.
So our interaction with money is very important. And one of the things that I have found that's helped me just from a visual perspective, because I'm a very visual processor, is to think about money as a river. And if you're on the bank and maybe you're standing, your feet aren't even in the water. But if you're standing on the bank saying, I wish I could have money, I wish I could have money, I wish I could have the river, all you have to do is really step into it. But now let's say you go ahead and you step into it, but you're frozen and you're thinking, I don't know how to manage this. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to swim. I don't know how to float. I don't know how to do all these things. And you get so wrapped up in the I don't knows, then that's going to stymie you or prevent you from really being able to get in the flow. So the goal, the way I look at it, the goal visually is for me to be able to be in the flow of the river, so that there's always plenty of money. There's always plenty of money, and it's around me. So now it's a question of, do I receive money? Do I accept money? Do I welcome money into my life? Is the flow a part of me, or do I see myself as separate from it?
Yes, that's an important piece right there too.
Yeah.
Because then there's a feeling of that separation, and you're always grasping for something as if it were outside of you and unattainable, as opposed to something that all you really have to do is reach into the river and it's right there.
Yeah. And so then going back to this idea that money is really God, or money is really this universal energy, then it takes us into the question of our relationship with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
So are we blocking the divine? Are we in flow with the divine? Are we connected with the divine? Is the divine us? Are we an element or a segment of, or are we the divine? So lots of questions to be asked, and that all brings us back down to our beliefs, because if we understand that money is just one expression of the divine, truly it is.
Yeah.
We have to say, okay, I am open, willing, and ready to receive. I do receive. I express and accept and love money. I love the divine. I am part of the divine, and I'm swimming in the divine all day long. It's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah.
And I'm not rich. That's not my goal, by the way. I'm not out there to become rich. I'm out in the world now to be of service. And as I am of service, other people value the service I provide, and then that provides for my inflow of income. But I think we have to really take a very different look at how we want to be participating in the world. A lot of people say to me, I hate my job, I hate what I'm doing, I'm miserable, I could care less about this job. And that's really where they're at. And I say, well, how's your money flow? And they go, it sucks, I don't have any. And then I say, well, what if you considered something differently? What if you said goodbye to this job and you dove into the kind of thing that you really love? Like, maybe somebody's an incredible singer and they have this very rich, wonderful voice, and they love to sing, and they love it when they go to a party and somebody says, oh, would you sing a song for us? And, everybody cheers and claps when they do. And, the whole room is just shocked at the beauty that this person expresses through their voice. Mm-hmm. And they say, wow, you should be on stage, and you could be at the Met, or you could do this, or you could do that. And the guy goes, no, I can't do that, and they go, well, why? Well, because I've got this job. And I'm like, oh my God, live your purpose. It's important for us to be where our heart is. Live what we're here to be living. We're here to express beauty and magic and the wonderment of our world and who we are in that world. And we will be rewarded for that. But see, then there comes all the fears. Nobody's going to
That's
pay
right.
me to be a singer. Nobody pays people to be good actors or actresses. And, I mean, just average everyday people. It's like you have to be somebody special. You have to be a movie star. Well, those movie stars weren't always movie stars. They started off somewhere. So
Yeah, everybody has to start somewhere. But I can tell you as an astrologer, that's the one thing I hear from people often is, that's not a real job, right? Being a singer isn't a real job. Again, a belief, and it's hard to come up against a belief like that when, you're trying to open up people to what the potential is, to follow their passion, to do what they love, and they bring that up. I mean, that's why something like PsyK is so invaluable, because it goes to the belief that they're holding as opposed to the, oh, that's not real, or, that's not something that makes people money or whatever.
Yeah, I agree. And Janet, it's important to understand that PsyK isn't necessarily going to solve everybody's problems, but my gosh, it's an incredible first few steps.
Yeah, it is.
And it's been the most important and dynamic set of tools I've used in my life. I was married for 17 years with my first husband, and during that entire 17 years, we went to a counselor. And Roger, I know you've got a counseling background, and I don't knock counselors at all. I think we're very much in need of incredible, wonderful people like yourself who are willing to help us figure things out at the conscious level. And sometimes that's all we need. And there's times where we really need to start changing the programming that's at the subconscious level.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly powerful when we can address the conscious mind with the subconscious mind. Counseling can even be more effective than it's ever been. I've got an incredible lady that's here in the Denver market, and she's a psychologist, and I've worked with psychiatrists as well, by the way, who have come to PsyK and they said, the standard format just isn't making enough change for the people I'm working with. I'm looking to PsyK to see if it can make a difference. Well, this one lady that I'm referring to now that's a psychologist, she told me the last time we got together for a practice session, she says, I'm changing everything. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she says, I'm shutting down my business. I'm shutting down the way I've been doing it. I'm going to be doing all PsyK from now on. And I'm like, oh my God, that's incredible. And she's this beautiful woman that is just so heart-centered, and she sees the differences. It's not like she's never going to use any of her previous skills.
Right.
Certainly those will show up. But she wants to be helping people use these subconscious change processes along with the conscious mind processes from her counseling abilities to really deepen the experience for her clientele. So our changes are available to us. We've just got to get out there and get involved in them. We've got to jump in the river.
True.
Get wet.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Were you going to say something else, Roger?
Well, there's a couple of things in regard to, traditional therapy. I think that it's like anything else. I think that there's people out there that would benefit, and I think it's a good place to start.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that the Model T was a really good car back in the early 1900s, but today it would be pretty much useless. And I think that there's so many great tools like PsyK out there now that can help people get to the core of what's really going on versus sitting and talking about it, right? It's like, I remember listening to Carolyn Mace so many years ago talk about therapy being like a boat to get from one side of a lake to the other. But what happens is people get out in the middle, they start going around in circles, they identify with their wounding, and that's who they become. And I think that really, for me, spoke to the heart of like traditional therapy. I think there's so many more great tools out there, but at the same time, it does serve a purpose.
Oh, absolutely, Roger. And I'm so grateful for the counseling that I had in my life, because it really allowed me to get to where I am today. I wouldn't be where I am today, I don't think, if I hadn't had it, And as I mentioned earlier in our program, awareness is one of the first steps to being able to change who we are. And I know for a fact that the counseling that I experienced brought me a lot of incredible awareness. And so one of our new terms is that, Psych-K is really about high-speed mindset change. And it is. It's about getting in the motorboat now. It's like, there's all kinds of motorboats out there, and you can get from one side of the lake to the other with a rowboat or a motorboat or a canoe or whatever. But man, you put it on like a hyperdrive thing or a hydroplane and you go there and you're across. That makes a lot more sense to me. Let's all the tools that we have available to us and really enjoy the end result, because it's not about the ride across the river so much. It's about what's on the other side. It's that whole new understanding about, if I'm here today and I'm living this life, but I see a bigger picture of who I can be over here. I just got to get from here to there. We can do it, and I'm living proof that it's possible. And I work with people all the time that are working those possibilities for themselves into more than probabilities. It's realities, new realities.
Sure.
Karen, thank you so much for being with us today. This has been so cool. And I really there's a whole nother piece to this that I would really love to get to. And that is about the changing the statements that, you talked about initially, like, I'm not a good money manager. How can we, reframe that? But I want to make sure that we honor your time, and I don't know if that's something we want to get into today or maybe at another time. In the interest of time, then, let's share with our listeners where they can get a hold of you, where they can find out more information about the work you're doing and more about Psych-K.
Okay, well, great. Thank you so much for that. First of all, I want to make sure that everybody understands that I am one of, I think we now have 41 instructors internationally. And so I'm not the only one out there that can help you. There's a lot of wonderful Psych-K instructors. Do want to make sure that you understand, please do work with a certified Psych-K instructor. And it's very important that you find them on the Psych-K International website. If you're searching for someone other than myself, please make sure you get a hold of somebody that has had the proper training, that understands these processes inside and out, because it's very important for your own well-being that you get the very best product out there. So you can find me at subconsciouschange.com. And my email, if you want to email me, is Karen@subconsciouschange.com. And my phone number is 719-648-3070. And I'm very happy to visit with you. I want to thank you, Janet and Roger, for having me on today. It's been such a delight, and I really have had a great conversation with you, and I hope that this information is a blessing for all of you that have had a chance to tune in and participate. So
well, thank you for being here.
Oh, it's been a joy and a pleasure. It's so much fun.
I know.
Absolutely.
It really is. And I want to have you come back on and talk to us more about how to change some of these beliefs, or I think you called them life-enhancing beliefs. That would be another really good place to take this conversation. So thank you so much, Roger. Thank you for being here. Next week, our guest is going to be, well, we might have to edit this part out, Roger, because I cannot remember now. His name went right out of my head. Chuck Knoll. Oh, no, that's not it anyway. Chuck
Knoll is dead. He was the coach of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, you know what? Next week we have a guest. We don't remember who it is, but join us and you'll find
I know that he's going to be talking to us about taxes and him fighting the IRS and winning in some way, shape, or form.
Maybe it's good that we don't know who he is then. He's going to be a secret guest.
Well, thank you all for tuning in today. Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Roger. We'll see you next week.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.